Picture this. You're standing in the middle of the night, thousands of feet up in the cold, isolated, jagged peaks of the Pyrenees Mountains.
Oh, wow. Okay. Setting a pretty intense scene right off the bat.
Yeah, I mean, you really have to visualize it.
Yeah.
You're right on that rugged border between France and Spain. The air is just freezing, the slope is pitch dark,
Right.
and down in a small depression, a flock of sheep is bedded down for the night, huddled together for warmth. Now, here is the image I want you to hold on to for this whole deep dive.
I'm ready.
There is no shepherd walking the perimeter with a torch. No human being pacing around, keeping watch.
Just the sheep.
Well, not just the sheep. Right at the edge of that flock, blending perfectly into the grass and the wool, there is this massive white shape.
Ah, I know where this is going.
It's lying there, completely still. It's awake, and it is just watching.
It really completely resets our modern expectations of what a working dog actually looks like.
It totally does.
Because, we are so used to seeing dogs frantically fetching or herding or running agility courses. So a dog whose entire job description is to lie still in the freezing dark feels almost, well, alien to us.
Okay, let's unpack this. Today, we are diving deep into the fascinating world of the Great Pyrenees.
And it is a deeply fascinating world.
Exactly. And the mission for this deep dive is to explore how understanding this breed's intense history as a mountain livestock guardian, literally that specific dog watching in the dark, explains everything a modern owner is going to deal with.
Every single thing.
Right. We're talking about their legendary barking, that famous stubbornness, their immense size, and the very specific biological ways you have to manage their health and training.
People routinely misinterpret the giant fluffy dog sleeping on their living room couch. I mean, we look at that relaxed posture by the fireplace, and we just assume we are looking at a wonderfully lazy, easygoing pet.
Which is a trap, right?
It is a massive trap. And that is the core thesis I want you to keep in mind throughout our entire deep dive today. The Great Pyrenees is calm at home, not because it's designed to be an easy, passive companion.
Right.
It is calm because it is a patient, highly independent guardian. For this breed, calm is not the absence of a job. Calm is the job.
So to really understand why this dog behaves the way it does when it's just, sprawled across a rug in a suburban living room, we first have to understand exactly how it thinks when it's up on that mountain.
Yes. To do that, you have to look at the environment that forged their brains over centuries. The Pyrenees Mountains are brutal.
I mean, they look beautiful in pictures, but...
Beautiful but deadly. The terrain is incredibly steep, the winters are bitterly cold, and historically those slopes were populated by hungry wolves and brown bears.
not exactly a relaxing pasture.
Exactly. And the shepherds who worked there couldn't possibly supervise their flocks 24 hours a day. I mean, they had to sleep, they had to seek shelter from the storms.
Which means the dog couldn't rely on a human to point out the danger. They had to figure it out entirely by themselves.
Yes, and think about the working dogs we usually see at the local park. Herding dogs, like
Yeah.
border collies or Australian shepherds.
Oh, yeah, the ones doing backflips for a tennis ball.
Right. Those dogs are brilliant, but their brilliance is rooted in executing commands instantly. A human whistles or says, go left, and the dog goes left without hesitation.
They are an extension of the human's will.
Exactly. But a livestock guardian's intelligence is entirely different. It is entirely judgment-based.
Judgment-based. Okay, I like that term.
These dogs had to live socially with the sheep, effectively becoming part of the flock, and make their own critical life or death calls about what constituted a threat without any human direction whatsoever.
Here's where it gets really interesting. It's the difference between a soldier who waits for a commanding officer's orders and an independent security contractor hired to assess threats and make their own executive decisions.
The security contractor analogy is spot on. That contractor doesn't look to you to tell them if the building is safe.
Right, you hired them to tell you.
Exactly. They assess the perimeter, they check the blind spots, and they inform you of the status. They are hired for their independent expertise.
But wait, if they are making their own executive decisions all the time, does this independent judgment mean the dog is just fundamentally untrainable? Because, people constantly call this breed stubborn.
Oh, constantly.
And if I have a 100-pound dog that acts like an independent contractor who just ignores my requests, that sounds incredibly frustrating.
What's fascinating here is that when people call the Great Pyrenees stubborn, they are usually completely misreading the dog's internal processing.
Really? So it's not just them being jerks?
Not at all. Stubbornness implies that the dog understands your command and is actively choosing to defy you, just to be difficult.
Yeah.
Maybe out of spite or laziness.
Right, like a teenager refusing to take out the trash.
Exactly. But with this breed, it's not about defiance. It's a genetic mandate.
Yeah. A genetic mandate.
Yes. If you call your dog away from the fence line and it ignores you,
Yeah.
it is actively evaluating whether your recall command is worth following over the potential threat it currently perceives out there in the distance.
Ah, so it's doing the math. It's hearing a twig snap in the woods and asking itself, is this the wind blowing through the brush? Or is this a coyote testing the edge of our territory?
Precisely.
And my come here and get a treat command is simply ranking lower on their priority list in that specific moment.
They're genetically hardwired to prioritize their own threat evaluation over a human's instruction.
Wow.
We have to respect the biology here because that exact trait, that unwavering trust in their own judgment, is precisely what kept those flocks of sheep alive for centuries in incredibly hostile, isolated conditions.
Okay, so if the Great Pyrenees relies entirely on its own judgment to identify threats, it obviously needs tools to actually handle those threats.
Oh, definitely.
And that leads us to the two most common and honestly sometimes most stressful surprises for new owners: the noise and the roaming.
The voice and the perimeter.
Mhm.
Two elements of their biology you absolutely cannot ignore or wish away.
Well, I want to push back on the voice immediately because it is legendary. We're talking about the bark here.
It is a massive bark.
Right, so if I live in a suburb and this dog is genetically hardwired to boom its bark at a shadow at 2 a.m., isn't that just a recipe for a noise complaint?
Usually, yes.
How is a simple settle cue going to override 1,000 years of mountain genetics?
Well, you have to look at the mechanics of why that bark exists in the first place. A guardian working alone in the dead of night doesn't actually want to get into a physical fight with a wolf or a bear if it doesn't have to.
Because they could get hurt.
Exactly. A fight means a massive risk of injury or death. Energy conservation is vital for survival out there. So its primary, most effective tool is a deep, booming, incredibly loud bark that carries for miles.
Basically a sonic weapon?
Pretty much. The message of that bark is very simple. It says, I see you, I am huge, and I am not moving.
Like a warning shot.
It's a deterrence mechanism. It's also a long-range communication tool to signal other guardian dogs across the valley.
Okay, that makes total sense on a mountain. But in a modern neighborhood, when your Pyrenees lets out this earth-shaking bark at, like, the neighbor's cat or a plastic bag blowing down the street, it feels like they're overreacting.
I get that.
Yeah.
But to us, it's a plastic bag. To the dog, it's an anomaly on the perimeter.
Right.
That is a highly functional, ancient behavior being deployed in a modern setting. And this is where owners get incredibly frustrated because they try to train it away with scolding or punishment.
Which doesn't work, I'm guessing.
It fails completely. You cannot train this instinct out of the dog.
So you don't get mad at a bird for flying, and you shouldn't get mad at a Pyrenees for barking. But I still have neighbors.
Right, the neighbors do care.
So what is the actual mechanism for managing it if I can't train it away?
You manage the environment and the routine. You physically bring them inside at night so they aren't left out to police the neighborhood while everyone sleeps.
Oh, so just take away their access to the perimeter at night?
Yes. And you teach them that once they have alerted you, you acknowledge the threat and give them a structured, settled command to let them know the job is done.
Like saying, thanks, buddy, I got it from here.
Exactly. Furthermore, you build predictable daily routines so the dog isn't sitting out there scanning for non-existent problems just out of sheer understimulated boredom.
Boredom is a massive factor, but the other massive factor triggering that bark is the perimeter itself, because the sources are absolutely relentless on this point. Secure fencing is mandatory with the Great Pyrenees. It is not optional.
Fencing is the physical manifestation of their job description.
Let me challenge this idea of the fence, though, because there is a huge myth out there about country living.
Oh, the open acreage myth.
Yeah. If someone has, say, 10 or 20 acres of beautiful open land, why isn't that just an absolute paradise for this breed? No fence, just endless room to roam and be a dog.
It sounds idyllic to a human, but to the dog's guardian mind, space without structure triggers deep, chronic anxiety.
Wait, really? Anxiety from too much space?
Yes. If a Great Pyrenees does not have a clearly defined physical boundary, it views the landscape as an unfinished job. In their mind, an unclear boundary is a porous perimeter.
Oh, I see.
They literally do not know where their responsibility to protect you ends. This leads to intense restlessness, endless pacing, and active attempts to expand their territory to find a natural, defensible boundary, like a river or cliff edge.
So what you're saying is a big yard without a fence isn't freedom. It's an impossibly massive, stressful space for them to have to patrol all by themselves.
Exactly.
They are going to walk and walk and walk, pushing further out, just trying to find the edge of where the danger might come from.
A solid visible fence tells the dog, your job stops here. Anything beyond this wooden line is not your problem.
Wow, that's such a paradigm shift.
That physical structure is what actually allows their mind to finally turn off and relax. Without it, they are on duty for the entire county.
Okay, so if a fence tells them where the wolves are, how do they figure out who is supposed to be inside the fence with them? Ah, the flock.
Right, because a modern family with a toddler and a bunch of visiting neighbors is a lot more chaotic than a flock of sleeping sheep. Let's look at how this deep-seated guardian instinct shapes the dog's relationship with his family.
This specific dynamic is usually what draws people to the breed in the first place, honestly.
Right.
They are universally famous for being incredibly gentle, exceptionally patient, and deeply loyal.
Gentle giants, basically.
They have an almost mythical reputation with children.
But again, based on everything we've talked about, this isn't just because they are inherently sweet in a cartoonish way. It comes directly from the mechanics of the mountain.
It stems entirely from their historical tolerance for vulnerable, unpredictable creatures. Consider the biology of a flock of sheep, specifically the lambs.
Yams are pretty chaotic.
Very chaotic. Lambs dart around erratically, they make sudden, loud bleating noises, they literally stumble into the dogs while playing.
And a guardian dog that snaps at a chaotic lamb out of irritation is a useless guardian dog. Precisely. They had to evolve a profoundly deep well of patience. That exact same biological tolerance is what you see when a Great Pyrenees interacts with a chaotic, loud toddler dropping toys on the floor.
However, we need to be incredibly clear about the reality of living with giant breeds. Good with kids absolutely does not mean supervision-free.
Never. Never, ever supervision-free.
We're talking about a dog that can easily weigh well over 100, sometimes up to 140 pounds.
Massive animals.
Right, so a completely friendly lean to ask for a pet, or just turning around quickly because they heard a loud noise, can easily knock a small child flat on their back. It's not aggression, it's just pure physics. Mass times acceleration.
Physics and situational awareness. And that intense family loyalty also comes with a necessary flip side. Their devotion to their flock is naturally paired with a distinct reserve toward strangers.
Welcoming the flock while constantly watching the newcomer, which is exactly what they had to do if a stranger wandered into the high pastures.
This is why intentional, structured, early socialization is so absolutely critical for a Great Pyrenees puppy.
Just to make sure they know what normal humans look like.
Well, socialization doesn't just mean letting strangers pet them. It means exposing them to a wide variety of stimuli. You know, skateboards, umbrellas opening, people wearing weird hats, sudden loud noises.
And keeping it positive.
Exactly. Keeping the experience completely calm and neutral. The goal is to ensure that as their brain develops, their natural watchfulness matures into clear discernment rather than blanket suspicion.
It's like the dog is a massive bouncer at an exclusive club.
That is a great way to think about it.
You want a bouncer who calmly checks IDs, observes the crowd, and only steps in if there's a legitimate issue. You definitely do not want a bouncer who tackles everyone who walks through the front door just because they don't immediately recognize their face.
Right. Protective should never mean reactive.
I love that.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, looking at the practical reality of owning this dog, by the time it is fully grown, it is going to be far too large and far too strong for you to physically redirect it if it decides it perceives a threat.
Yeah, you aren't winning a wrestling match with the Pyrenees.
You simply cannot outmuscle a determined 120-pound dog on a leash.
Yeah.
Therefore, you absolutely must build that psychological discernment, that mental framework of trust and calm observation, while the dog is still small enough to manage.
So if you're listening to this and you've got a Pyrenees snoring on your rug right now, you're probably nodding along to the stubbornness and the barking. But if you can't physically force a guardian dog to do anything, how do you actually train and care for one?
That is the million-dollar question.
It brings us to the physical realities and the day-to-day care of the breed.
Trust is the only currency you deal in with the Pyrenees. Training has to be entirely reward-based, deeply patient, and incredibly consistent.
So no drilling them for hours.
No, you aren't going to get a dog that loves doing 50 push-ups for a treat or running complex obedience drills. You have to focus on essential, functional, daily life skills.
You like what?
Loose leash walking, polite greetings at the door, and being comfortable with grooming and veterinary handling.
What happens if someone tries to use harsh corrections? The old school alpha role or dominance-based training where you try to physically force the dog into submission?
It backfires spectacularly because it breaks the logic of the guardian mind.
How so?
If you try to physically dominate a breed that was genetically programmed to trust its own judgment and assess threats, the dog doesn't view you as an alpha.
What do they view you as?
The dog views you as erratic, unpredictable, and frankly unreasonable. You destroy the trust. The dog will simply look at you, decide your judgment is fundamentally flawed, and stop offering any cooperation whatsoever.
Yeah, they just revoke your management credentials.
That is exactly what they do.
That makes total sense. Now let's talk about the physical realities, starting with that iconic white coat. I imagine it's not just a fashion statement, and I know you're probably looking at massive amounts of white fur all over your floor if you own one.
Oh, the fur is everywhere. But it's a highly functional, weatherproof double coat built specifically to survive freezing mountain winters and deflect the elements.
Sounds like a lot of work to maintain.
And it is incredibly maintenance intensive. You are looking at regular, deep brushing to prevent painful mats, especially in the thick, woolly undercoat.
Right.
And they don't just shed normally. They undergo a biological process driven by changes in daylight called photoperiodism. When the seasons change, they blow their coat, meaning they drop massive tufts of undercoat all at once.
So with a coat built for blizzards, heat has to be a major risk. I mean, they are basically wearing a heavy down parka in July.
It is a significant risk. Owners must proactively manage the dog's environment, ensuring they always have access to deep shade, air conditioning, cool floors, and strictly managing their activity levels on hot days.
If you see your dog panting on a 90-degree day, the immediate human temptation is to just take out the clippers and shave the dog down to the skin to give it some relief.
Please don't do that.
Why is that a terrible idea?
I like to compare their double coat to a high-tech Yeti cooler.
Oh, interesting.
The same technology that keeps the heat inside during the winter is exactly what keeps the heat out during the summer.
I never thought of it that way.
The thick undercoat provides a layer of loft that actually traps cool air close to the dog's skin, while the longer, coarser guard hairs on top reflect the sun's rays and provide vital protection against sunburn and biting insects.
So by shaving them, you aren't cooling them down. You are stripping away their only built-in defense mechanism against the heat. You're just breaking the thermodynamics of the coat entirely.
You are leaving them completely exposed.
Yeah.
If you are ever considering altering that coat for medical reasons, you must consult a veterinarian or a professional groomer who truly understands the biology of double-coated giant breeds.
Okay, we've talked about the coat, but what about what's underneath it? If you can't use force to train them, and you can't run them to exhaustion because of the heat, how does exercise fit into their health plan? Do they need to run 5 miles a day?
Not at all. They are not high-drive kinetic athletes. Calm and steady is the goal.
So just taking it easy.
They need regular, meandering walks, and crucially, lots of time to just sniff and explore the environment. Sniffing is intense mental processing for them.
It tires out their brain.
Exactly. Moderate activity is vital, especially when they are puppies, due to the mechanics of their growth. Giant breed puppies grow incredibly fast, and their epiphyseal plates, the growth plates in their joints, are soft and carrying a massive amount of rapidly increasing weight.
Which means they are fragile.
Highly fragile. Repetitive impact injuries from running on hard surfaces or jumping off furniture when young can cause severe, lifelong orthopedic problems.
And as adults, keeping them lean is critical, right? An overweight 100-pound dog is putting terrible, constant mechanical strain on its hips and elbows. Speaking of health mechanics, there is a very specific large breed condition owners need to be hyper aware of.
Yes, specifically a condition called bloat, or gastric dilatation volvulus, commonly known as GDV.
GDV.
It's a sudden, life-threatening emergency strongly tied to deep-chested breeds like the Pyrenees.
Walk us through the mechanics of why that happens. Why is a deep chest a risk factor?
Well, a deep chest creates a large, cavernous space in the dog's abdomen. If the dog eats a massive meal or drinks a huge amount of water, the stomach becomes heavy.
Okay.
Because of that cavernous space, if the dog then engages in heavy, rigorous activity, that heavy stomach can swing like a pendulum or a hammock.
Yeah, that doesn't sound good.
It isn't. If it swings too far, it can actually flip completely over on itself, trapping gas inside and cutting off blood supply to major organs.
That is terrifying. But understanding the pendulum effect explains exactly why feeding habits are so important. It's why owners use slow feeder bowls and enforce strict rest periods immediately before and after meals to keep that stomach stable.
Exactly right. It requires vigilance and a solid relationship with your vet to monitor these specific mechanical risks of giant breed biology.
We have covered a massive amount of ground today. Barking, porous perimeters, toddler dynamics, the thermodynamics of the coat, and joint health.
It's a lot to take in.
It really is. But to wrap up this deep dive, I want to circle back to where we started. Everything, literally every challenge and every joy of owning this breed circles back to the guardian mind.
Always.
The dog standing on that cold mountain watching the horizon is the exact same dog lying quietly by your living room window. It is always on duty.
It never clocks out.
Right. Loving how a Great Pyrenees looks, majestic white coat, the gentle, soulful eyes. That is not the same as being ready for what it actually is.
Not at all.
Are you ready for the mandatory structural fencing, the intense blowing coat, the deeply patient trust-based training?
Yeah.
And are you ready to accept and manage the booming midnight voice it was genetically built with?
It is a profound, life-altering commitment. And it leaves us with a really fascinating thought to mull over.
I'd love to hear it.
We bring these magnificent ancient creatures into our modern, highly sanitized, incredibly predictable suburban lives. We expect them to fit into our schedules.
Right.
Yet they are carrying thousands of years of wild mountain survival deep in their DNA. It raises a really provocative question about modern pet ownership.
Which is?
When we invite these ancient instincts into our living rooms, are we asking the dog to fundamentally change its wild nature to suit our convenience? Or is the dog actually asking us to slow down, build some boundaries, and reconnect with a wilder, more patient way of living?
Wow. That is something to really think about the next time you see one of these beautiful dogs lying in the grass, perfectly still, just watching the night. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been an absolute privilege exploring the science and history of this breed with you.
As always, a quick reminder to you listening, this deep dive is for educational purposes only. If you're ever concerned about your dog's health or behavior, always consult your veterinarian. We'll see you next time.